Hello everyone, in this video tutorial we will discuss, I'll explain you what is static case by giving some example of when and why we use static and also show you how to use it in your code. Static in C# basically refers to a keyword. As you can see here, keyword, it can be applied to a class, method, variable, or you can have a static property in your code. This is a static method. As you can see here, the main method. Here we are making static method, meaning it belongs to the class itself rather than to any instance of the class. So I can have a static class, which is basically highly impossible to create instance of a static class because it won't let you to create instance of a static class. So what is the benefit of using static class, or why, or in which scenarios you have to use static? So suppose when you want to keep track of global state across your entire application, we can go with a static. Or you want to share data between instance of class, then you can go for static. Or you want to prevent multiple instances of a class being created, then go for static. Let's create a car class, public class car. So this class will keep track of total number of cars that has been created, and we can achieve by creating a static field, say public static int car count is equal to 0, and the field car count is belong to car itself rather than to any instance of the class. So I can say car dot car count is equal to 0. I'm not doing anything now. So let's have a constructor, constructor of car, and this will increment the car count field every time a new car object is created. Let's say car, new car, and console write line, say car dot count. Let's run this. Now it's 1. Let's create few more objects of the say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 instances of car. Let's see what happens now. 6. We are not accessing this car count with any instance of this one. We're just using car class and accessing this property which is part of this class using static. Let's get rid of all these ones and see if I can access this particular car count property using instance. No, it's not available. It's only available with car class, not with the instance of a class. That's why you use static keyword inside class. Can we make static const int that's giving an error cannot be marked as static when it is constant? It's a compiler error. So either we can have constant or we can have static, but not both together. Let's create a public static method, public static void, just say print count. What it will do is just console read line, let's say number of car created, car count. So we can call this one car dot print count with the class instead of car instance. So when I say car dot, see, we don't see that static method or a static field inside car object, instance object. The static fields and static, whatever goes inside the class as static, is only accessible with the class level, not with the instance level. So let's run this one. Number of cars created 1, and we are calling both here. This is printing 1 and this is printing the number of car created 1. So this static method is basically used as a utility function that does not require any specific instance of a class to be created, just to print something instead of going with creating an object or instance of an object is heavy. You can, instead of creating object to call something simple method or to print something on the screen or execute some logic, we can directly use class level, basically utility. Utilities doesn't require any instance, so we can have simple logic inside a method and we call them with a class level or access them with class. Can we access instance level members from a static member or method? No, you cannot access instance level members like instance field or instance methods directly from static method. So this is just because the instance level methods belong to individual instance of class, right? So when they create an object of a class, then you access those instance member, and the static methods belong to the class itself. Suppose you have a scenario where you have an instance level members and you need to access within a static method. So if you have a reference to an instance of a class, we can do this by passing an instance of a class as a parameter to a static method, or you can access the instance through a static property or a method that basically returns instance of a class. Let's say we have something like this: public static print, and this will print console or name of the car. So if I want to pass car as a parameter, then car, I need to have a property of a name, public string car name. Then we go here and say car name. Now we can create an instance of a car as we already have, and then we can pass the instance to, or we can set car name, say Honda, and then once this is done, car print and pass car object. Let's see the output. So in this scenario, what we're doing is we have a car class and we set its name field to Honda, and we call a static method print, and we are passing an instance of a car class as a parameter. So this static method is able to access the name field of the instance by using parameter that has been passed in. So can static method be overridden? No, we cannot, or it cannot be overridden. Let's say if I say, what do we have to use to override? It has to be virtual, right, or new. So if I say virtual, then we get an error saying cannot mark it as virtual. Static members is accessible with the class itself, so we can't have this one. So we have a static class in non-static, or a static members in non-static class. What if I say public static class car? So the static class should have all the fields, methods, properties static, and the non-static class can contain both static members as well as non-static members. This is non-static member, this is a static member. You can have both in non-static class, but when you make it a static, everything has to be static inside static class. Let's see what happens if I convert this one to static class. So we have to change this one. We have to make this as a static as well. Okay, this is only accessible with the class level, so you can't do this. The way you can do it, just this way. So this is accessible through the class, and whenever you want to just set the property of this one using class. And here it is, should be static, but you can't use access modifier. Get rid of this and we're good. Now it won't allow you to create an instance. We can call everything to the car class itself. So if I want car print, then call it. We are not set anything to the car, Let's see what happens. Car name is not printed. So when you set a car name, Honda, then we see the car name is Honda. So the main purpose of static constructor is, this is basically a special type of constructor, and it is called only once when a class is first used. And we use this static constructor to initialize any static member of a class. Suppose I want to set this value. Instead of setting here, let's set the count is equal to 0 here. The count is 0 because we are not creating any instance of this class and just executing. So this is being called when the class is first time used. So everything accessible through a class itself. If it is non-static, we create an instance of car, then call one by one, because all the non-static class members having non-static properties, fields, methods, only accessible with instance. And it is statics, everything accessible through a class itself. And can I pass a parameter to a static constructor? Let's see. I want to pass int a. So no, we can't do that. It says a static constructor must be a parameterless. So we cannot pass a parameter to a static constructor. It's already giving a compile time error. It's just because this class constructor is static is called automatically by runtime when the class is first used, and the runtime does not provide any parameters to the constructor. So it's not possible to have parameter in static constructor. And can I use this keyword inside static method? Not a valid static property. Static method is associated with the class itself rather than with the instance of a class. So no instance of a class, and there is no instance to refer inside static method. We have seen we cannot access instance level members from a static method. So can we at least call an instance method from a static method? We can do that. Let's take an example. Let's say I have class car2 and I have some, let's have a public void instance method, and this will write this is an instance method. Let's call the car2 inside print. Let's create an instance of car2 car2 object, and then we can say car dot instance method, and we can run. This is an instance method which is basically called from static method. Can we implement interface using static class? No, because the interface has all contracts for instance level, not for static level. The static class do not have instances, right? Because the static class contains only static members which are accessible with the class itself, not with the instance. So when you try to implement an interface with a static class, then we get compile time error saying static class cannot implement an interface. Let's take an example to look what exactly happens. Let's say I have interface car color. This just as a contract y car color. Let's implement this with a non-static class. We're getting this because we have to implement all contracts of interface, right? So I can do this by using controller dot and implement car color of interface eye color. So when I make non-static class, a static one, then we have this error saying static class cannot implement interfaces, because the contracts what this interface has, all of them are instance level. So static class is not an instance level one, so we cannot implement an interface with a static class. When you have a non-static class, then we are all good, don't get any compile time errors. So the interfaces are implemented using class or a struct. You have a class and you can implement an interface, or you have a struct, you can implement an interface, because these are instance level classes and struct. So they have an ability to fulfill the contracts or to implement the contract of interface, and the static class cannot be instantiated and you cannot fulfill or implement the contracts of an interface. You must be thinking, what if I have static contracts in interface and implement this interface with the static class? So first of all, we get an error. The modifier static is not valid for this item. Even though if we have a static contract inside interface, what if we change it to static class instead of a non-static class? Says static class cannot implement interfaces.